Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this, our Operations Committee on the 22nd of August. I am your chair today. And for those on Zoom who don't know me, I'm Councillor Walker. We're going to open with a karakia, tuea ki rango, tuea ki raro, tuea ki roto, tuea ki wahua, tuea tātou te tangata, ki te kaupapa o te huinei, ki te kaupapa o te ranganui, moriia o ki a tātou katoa. Bind above, bind below, bind within, bind beyond, bind us the people to the purpose of our meeting, to the purpose of this day, breathe life into all of us. So just a few housekeeping rules. Welcome to everybody on Zoom. Chanel, it's lovely to see you there. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on Council's YouTube channel. Please can you mute your microphones unless you are speaking? And can you please raise your hands? And I have the Deputy Mayor promising to Zoom the room and prompt me when you're wanting to speak if I don't see it myself. People attending on Zoom, please can you turn off your camera and microphone during the breaks? And as everybody in this room no doubt is aware, the wharepaku is out through the doors there, as is the fire exits. The media are present. Welcome to them today. Okay, so I have a little message that I have to share with you, which has come from our lovely team here, which is that we are very light on a quorum for the meeting today. So if you do have to leave the room, please can you leave in ones, not in twos, because then I'd have to adjourn the meeting, pause it due to not having a quorum. I am mindful that we've already been advised by Councillor Butler that she has another appointment. She has to be gone by 12. No pressure, but may mean you only get a 5-minute coffee break. Okay, so today we really have some apologies, quite a few of them in fact. We have an apology from Mayor Tim King. We have apologies from Councillor Hill, Mackenzie, Mayling, Shellcrest and Greening. Can I have a mover for the apologies, please? Councillor Dowler, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Butler, all in favour? Okay, carried. In the public forum today, I believe. Oh yes, I believe we do have Councillor Mike Kinnemoff presenting. I expected him to be over there, actually not in the chair. Councillor Mike Kinnemoff, are you presenting a petition on behalf of the Mapua community member Sally Hargraves? Welcome.
Morning, councillors, TDC people. I've been asked by a resident in Mapua called Sally Hargraves to present a petition to you. There were 91 signatures, and the petition is concerning the concrete lane separators in Mapua Aranui Drive. I will now read the petition out to you. These separators were installed in late 2023 by the NZTA, New Zealand Transport Association, Waka Kotahi, funded Streets for People program, in which a bunch of raised crossings, planter boxes and lots of brightly coloured paint was brought to New Zealand cities, towns and villages without consideration of actual need. They were apparently installed to increase the perceived safety of cycling. But this has not eventuated and has only resulted in multiple incidents of damage to people, bikes and cars, as well as anger from locals who don't think they need it in the first place. Please remove these dangerous, damaging and unsightly separators. Similar separators on Salisbury Road in Richmond are being removed after local protest. TDC Councillor Glenn Dakey confirmed that they were to keep cyclists safe. We have inadvertently made it more dangerous. We don't need large objects or gaudy green paint on our roads. A simple low-profile rumble strip will achieve the same outcome without the hazard. Thank you for listening to me.
Do any councillors have any points of clarification to raise with our presenter this morning? Thank you for your presentation. So I'm going to ask, is there any declarations of interest from anybody? Nope. Okay, and my understanding is there are no late items. And now we're going to do the confirmation of the minutes from the meeting held on the 27th of June to be confirmed as true and correct record of that meeting. I have Councillor Dakey and seconded by Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? Anyone against? Carried. Thank you. Then we're going to move on to the reports. So the first one is Chair's report. I don't think there is an actual Chair report.
No, we don't do that.
No, I'm not sure what that's on my agenda anyway. Then we're going to have a presentation. We do have him in the room from Downer Alliance from Drew Hayes. If you'd like to come up and present to us, thank you. Oh. Nice learning.
Kia ora, everyone. I've got the pleasure, it's not just for your pleasure, it's not just you listening to me drone on today. I've got Jeremy Burton with me here, who's our asset manager for the Tasman Alliance. He's very, very talented young man and does a lot of really good work for our road network, which is really cool. He's going to present a little bit further on through the presentation. The pointers, the pointy thing's not working. Oh, here we go. Excellent. So I thought we'd start off just by covering off what we've been up to for the last 12 months all across the network, just with a few facts and figures that you might find interesting. So on the chemical spraying front, so looking after our assets, signposts, guardrails, etc., we've sprayed 1,811 kilometres of road, which is pretty much the same as driving from Kaitaia to Dunedin for some scale. Detritus sweeping, so you see the patrol trucks with the brooms on the front. Ever wonder what they're for? That's for sweeping up detritus, which can be spilt gravel from trailers, trucks, gravel from the edge of the road that makes its way onto the road. We've swept 43.3 kilometres of that last year, which is a fair bit. Potholes, Councillor Walker's favourite item, 2,912 potholes were filled on the network in that year. And then also the asphalt work we do, so edge break and levelling, we did 5,641 metres of asphalt work. Signs, we worked on 983 of the 8,900 assets that we've got on the network, which is a 17% hit rate. So 17% of the signs got some form of work on them. That excludes cleaning. Heavy pavement, we did 13,500 square metres of heavy pavement work on maintenance treatments. I can't get to the next page, sorry. The pointer's not working, so I'll just... Excellent. Mowing, so we mowed an astonishing 4,579 kilometres of road, which is pretty much like driving from Kaitaia to Bluff, back again, and then turning around and going back to Hamilton. So that's a fair bit of mowing that was completed on the network. It translates to about 3 times around our entire rural network, which is slightly down on our level of service purely because the mower was parked up over the summer period with the fire danger. I think we didn't mow for about 3 months there. Grading also suffered the same fate in terms of we graded slightly less than normal because of fire danger, but we did grade 893 kilometres of unsealed road, which is around 2.5 times the network we got round, which is a fairly good deal. Next slide, please. So renewals, chip seal, some interesting figures. We treated 60 different sites across 35 different roads last financial year, seeing 80.09 kilometres of road treated, which translates to 274,552 square metres of asphalt. To do that, we used 564,000 litres of binder and spread 4,357 tonnes of chip across it. So it's a fairly big swag of work. Next slide, please. Asphalt renewals this year, the Motueka area got the royal treatment with asphalt. We asphalted a section on Quayle Street, the main road Lower Moutere and Wildman intersection, the Umakuri and Little Sydney intersection, as well as the Umakuri and Old Mill intersections. And those roads, those areas, I guess, were high in complaints for us because they were nearing the end of their usable life. So to get them treated has seen the complaints drop off to nothing, which is really good. Next slide, please. Unsealed roads, we spread 18,708 tonne of maintenance aggregate on the unsealed roads, covering 29 kilometres of road, which is 8% of our unsealed network that we maintain. Next slide, please. Looking forward, where are we going to be? I've sent the link out to you guys previously. If you haven't got it, please ask, but that's the best way to understand where we're going to be working, because we do intensively work on our pre-resale repairs on our resale sites, which we've started already. We're obviously parked up the back of Richmond here around Churchill, doing a lot of pre-resale work there. Next slide, please. So pavement rehabilitation. So this year we did a large pavement rehabilitation on Church Valley. It was a bit of a special one for us because we pioneered this maintenance treatment called emulsion stabilization in the Alliance. And I've talked about it before, how it's been widely adopted throughout the country now by other maintenance contracts. But we used our emulsion stabilizing mill to treat the entire base course of this road, which was about 6,000 square metres. We utilised 70,000 litres of binder to do so, and then also mixed in 13,000, well, that can't be right, 13 tonne of cement across it, which is a fair bit of work. And then obviously we used a 3D GPS guided grader there, you can see, to give it its final shape, which makes the ride really, really good. Next slide, please. So this is a bit of a one where Jeremy and I will talk about it together, but it's a bit of a value add, and sorry to Councillors Walker, Downer and Maru, but they've heard this week already at the mighty Motueka Community Board meeting. So our unsealed maintenance strategy, we changed how we do business in the unsealed world considerably in our tenure on the network. Yeah, next slide, please. So I guess, why did we change it, Jeremy?
G'day, councillors and other attendees. So a few years ago, we started off at a point with our unsealed network where we had quite a large amount of complaints and a lot of public dissatisfaction with the condition of the unsealed road network. We didn't have a whole bunch more money at that point to start throwing around, so we needed to figure out how we could make the most of what we had and get a better condition and lower that dissatisfaction. We put quite a step change in place in terms of the way that we decided to maintain the network, we used a bit of resource that was available to us in terms of existing metling and our grading strategy. So as part of that, we decided to, I guess, change the specification for the material that we're putting on and be not quite as picky with the material. And from that, we could maximize the amount of material that we're able to put on. As well with the grading, we had a concentrated effort into doing the basics right, making sure that we had good drainage, good metal recovery practices, so pulling in the metal that is already on the sides of the roads, and increasing the crossfalls where we could to shed water better on those sections of road.
Next slide, please. I guess some other things that we also did was our maintenance strategy. That's the area that Jeremy works in, is asset management. We redid that completely, basically how we target the roads we're going to. We introduced a philosophy called Paid Green into our working as well, which has worked really well. And I think the biggest change for it is we've gone from a thin layer of metal to what we call a resheeting of a road, where we put a full wearing course back on the road, and it just gives that grader operator, as you can see Cliffy driving our maintenance grader there, gives them more metal to play with to be able to put the higher crossfalls in. The higher the crossfall, the more the water gets off the road, the less damage gets done to the road each time it rains. Next slide, please. As you can see here, this is a graph of some figures Jeremy's pulled from 2017-18 financial year. We had just under 250 unsealed complaints on the network, or CSRs, customer service requests, right through to last financial year where we had 47, I believe. 49, sorry, which is a fairly good drop off you can see there, and you can sort of see the good trend that's running down. Next slide, please. It also correlates to financial savings on the network. We have gone from having one grader on the network full time back in 2017-18 right through to probably 19-20, and as well as utilising a surge resource, so an additional grader for a month or two to keep up when things got really tough out there. Right through to now, so last financial year, we actually saw Cliff go to 4 days a week to live a bit more lifestyle. So yeah, the grader's actually only running 20% less of the time currently, which is a really big saving on the network, as you can imagine. Next slide, please. And what are we left with? We're obviously left with a lot less complaints, which means we've got a tidier network out there, less corrugations, less potholes, less rutting, and I guess a happier travelling public on those unsealed roads. And just a few photos there of just the quality when the supervisors go out and have a look. So it's great to see. Next slide, please.
So this is just a couple of pictures from a presentation at a workshop that I did last week. Just want to highlight this. So this was the Low Volume Roads Conference in Christchurch last week, which is a national level conference in the road maintenance industry, and Tasman featured in a few different presentations there last week, and there was a huge amount of great feedback, and yeah, I just thought it was worth sharing. Tasman seen very positively in that space.
Leading the pack. Next slide, please.
Right, so just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about our inspections on the network. The Tasman Alliance has 3 full-time inspectors on the network, Marty, Alan and Crystal. They are the main team that go around and find all of the faults on the network, and that data is the basis for all of our decision making. It is the absolute key information that we use to be able to know where to send crews and what program, and it is really the bones of everything we do. Without that information, we wouldn't have the data to make the good decisions. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about what they do. Each year, they complete over 5,400 kilometres of targeted road inspections. over 1,100 lane kilometres of detailed all faults inspections, which is completed by video. So that's where they record video of the road, and then there's a desktop analysis done of that video, which enables a higher quality of data to be recorded. They do detailed inspections of over 2,100 drainage assets, which results in 100% of drainage assets being inspected over a 3-year period. They inspect over 800 kilometres of surface water channels, over 3,000 individual signs, every single bridge within our maintenance area at least twice, and a third of all railings and retaining structures. So there's a fair old swathe of work that they have to get through every year. Next slide, please. This is just an inspection report for last year. It's probably a little bit too small to read. Apologies for that. But these are the actual numbers of inspections completed last year. So signs, 3,395. Catch pits, 1,578. Sorry, that's culverts. I can't quite read it myself from here. Culverts, catch pits, 3,800. Surface water channels. And that last figure on the top row there, dispatches added. So that's the number of individual faults that they recorded in the management system, 14,623. It's quite large numbers there. Next slide, please. So from all of that, there's a lot of faults recorded on the network. I think everyone would be in agreement with the fact that there is a lot of network deterioration out there at the moment. More faults, more potholes, that sort of thing. So this is a graph showing the number of faults that over time that have been identified on the Tasman network between August 2022 and July 2024. Which shows some considerable growth. And this is a key part of the data that goes into the network deterioration modelling and helps drive a indication of the amount of investment needed. So all of those budgets that were signed off on a number of months ago now, this is a key part of the data that goes into that sort of decision making. Next slide, please. From all of those faults, we obviously do a huge amount of work. And for 2024-25, these are some round figures of some of the work that we're planning to do. So 28,000 square metres of isolated pavement and surface repairs. That's everything from heavy pavement dig outs all the way to crack sealing. 52 kilometres of shoulder and surface water channel work, 380,000 square metres of sealed road resurfacing, over 0.5 kilometre of culvert replacements, and a huge amount more as well of our routine work and other targeted work. So haven't included absolutely everything, but just a few of the nice shiny large figures there to get an idea of the scale of how much work is going to be done this year. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jeremy. The last little bit here, I guess, is we got some feedback a while ago that we when we're in the community, doing things in the community, we don't really talk about it much. So we've included a section in our quarterly report called Our Whānau in the Community. And this is just a few snips from the most recent. And the team sponsored the Motueka Nets kids basketball team, getting some team jerseys, which is pretty cool. The Downer team, obviously alongside the TDC team, put in a team to the Nelson Regional Hospice Heave for hospice. And yeah, it's pretty cool. The Downer team took out the overall prize. They've got some really good athletes in there. The team consisted of an average tugger weight of 145 kilos. They maxed out at 165 kilos. We had two team members at 165. So it's fair to say we destroyed the competition. And when we stood up on the podium there to get our photos with the wee plaque and whatnot, it was pretty cool to see our alliance partner, Tasman District Council, standing next to us, winning the most money raised. So it was really cool to see, us in our district just dominating it. So that was really cool. And then the other one down the bottom there, obviously reinvesting into our community. So our alliance partner down in New Zealand recently sponsored a new path along the Motueka saltwater baths there, just the reserve through there. And yeah, it's had some really good feedback. It's a really quality product put in, and yeah, just great feedback from the public. So that's us. So next slide, please. So yeah, any questions? We're happy to try and answer them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. And we do have a few questions. We're going to start with Councillor Butler and then go to Councillor Dowler.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, this is probably a predictable question, but I saw, in your map, you have got Golden Bay up there. So I'm just wondering, what's the extent of your activities in Golden Bay? Our metal roads are well maintained by Fulton Hogan, but I'm just, wondering if this new enhanced method of actually building metal roads is going to be used in Golden Bay at all.
Excellent, thank you. So we do the renewal activities in Golden Bay for sealed roads, so resealing and asphalt overlays, etc. In terms of the unsealed maintenance, I'd have to defer that to Richard, whether that's going to be taken across the hill or not.
I'll refer it to Jamie.
Welcome, Jamie.
Good morning, all. But a healthy competition is good, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, Fulton Hogan will also pride themselves as a company in the way they manage and maintain unsealed roads. So, I mean, the work that the Alliance have done on the roads around here has been a big step change for these roads, where there perhaps have been more issues and the maintenance hadn't been as reliable over the years and decades. But, as Councillor Butler identifies, equally, there's some good work happening over in Golden Bay and Murchison as well. So we're pretty pleased with how well we're served by our maintenance contractors, particularly with unsealed roads.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Dowler.
Thanks, team. Good presentation. Enjoyed it again. Jeremy, welcome. Good to hear what you had to say. On one of your photos there, you had a grader, and don't need to bring it back up, but behind it appeared to me, with my world, a bottom dump trailer. Is that what you use for spreading the shingle on the roads now to bring it up to the new standard? Is that what?
Yes, it is a bottom dumping trailer. The bottom dumper is used for a variety of reasons, mainly in areas where there's trees overhanging or power lines, etc., because we don't need to put a hoist up on it. But also we use it for a variety of reasons. One is to train new drivers. Obviously, maintenance metalling's a bit of an art to let the trailer go at the right time and then time the truck, so you get a continuous sort of seam of gravel. And obviously without a hoist up on the trailer wobbling around, it's just a good training ground for those people. But most importantly, we run a convoy of trucks when we're maintenance metalling for health and safety reasons, so that the front truck can actually not have the the hoist up. He can only have one hoist up, so we can effectively do it a bit more safer and then communicate to the trucks behind so that they don't let their gravel go when there's a car coming.
Yep. Number 2 question, just a quickie. The faults on the network are climbing. Do you think that we're starting to see the signs of the increased weight that the truck and trailers are allowed to carry around the district?
I'll try and answer your question and be upfront that I'm also going to slightly not answer it. I think there's a variety of reasons for the increase in that fault trend, and some of them are related to the previous amounts of investment in sealed road resurfacing. And some of them are related to changes in traffic use and changes in the type of climate effects we've seen as well. So I'll expand on those just a little bit quite quickly. In terms of the sealed network, the most important thing for most pavements to remain in good condition is to keep them waterproof. And in Tasman, I can say that there's a lot of quite weak pavements, and the waterproofing of those is absolutely paramount to them staying in good condition. So any roads where the sealed surface is particularly old begin to crack, which lets water in, which results in pavement failures and potholes and that sort of thing. So that investment is extremely necessary, and for a number of years, it's been on the low end of the spectrum in this district. So the increased investment in that space, I think, will help a lot. In terms of changes in traffic use, there's obviously some roads that are getting more and more traffic now as well, which degrades the pavement through axle loadings. Heavy trucks play a part in that, as do light vehicles. So there are some roads that are getting more heavy vehicles on, and we'll see increased deterioration naturally from that. That compounds with the waterproofing issue as well. In terms of climatic factors and that sort of thing, when we get storm events, those storm events often result in saturated pavement, and if there's a lot of traffic loading on that shortly after, typically we see a lot of increased deterioration on those sections of road. Storm events aren't good for pavements, as well as many other things on the network. So I think those three things are the things that we see as driving that increase the most at the moment. Equally, maintenance practices play a big part as well. So I don't think it's one particular thing. It's a range of factors.
Thanks. So it just brings to the head of the waterproofing side of it. If you don't paint your house, look after your house, it rots. If you don't look after your roads, they fall apart.
Thank you. I will move to Councillor Kinmoth, and then followed by Councillor Maru.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Hello, Drew, and always good to see the Alliance team here. I really enjoy your presentations. I've got a very quick question. You're talking about the number of signs that you've worked on. Do you do the electronic signs as well?
We do not, no.
Thank you, Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Drew, I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you. So thank you for your presentations that make sense to me, but also the availability you have for us as elected members. So I know that whenever we catch up as 3 ward councillors, you usually prompt us to meet, and we have a good chat about any issues in town. So just thank you for the partnership.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Drew and Jeremy, for the presentation and the work you do. Particularly appreciate, Drew, the work you do with Councillor McKenzie, the Chair. I'm sure she'd reflect the comments with her and myself and yourself about the work we do, just having a look around the network and her role as Chair of the operation. And you alluded to the Church Valley. That's been a real success story, and we went up there and had a look at it. It's an amazing ride to what it was previously, so work well done. Thank you. Just a couple of free questions from myself, if I may, Madam Chair. Just in relation, earlier on, Drew, you talked about the mowing, and one of the criticisms we get quite often is that they do it at the wrong time. It's very hard to do mowing at the right time, and the extent of the network, and particularly as you get into spring and it just all explodes. Some people are now advocating, why do we mow at all? I just wondered what your view was around that, and secondly, is there any way we can manage this thing about doing it when the grass is really low and people think, oh, that's just wasting money? Why do you do it early? And you try to explain them it is for the contractor to get round the network, and they just look at you with glazed over eyes. So Yeah, just wondered if you had any comment on that one firstly.
Thank you. It's a tricky one, that one. There's two schools of thoughts for mowing. You can either do a round-based approach or a continual-based approach. To do a round-based approach, you'd need 3 or 4 mowers, and they'd be parked up, which is where you typically subcontract it out. The method that the Alliance has chosen to go for, which is to have one Alliance mower on the network full-time. It gives us flexibility in where we go, what we do. It has some financial benefits as well, running our own plant. And the thing, I guess the downside to the single mower on the network full-time is that you will be mowing areas that, in times where the grass isn't growing, and you will attract that sort of criticism, but how the grass does need mowing. During winter, we're in the dead of winter. If we're on top of it, we do park the mower. I know he's just been off the road for about 3 weeks, just while there's nothing happening in terms of grass growth and everything was pretty well cut. But we do get round, the round takes us about 3 months typically to get around the entire network. So in those high growth areas, we do treat the roads typically once, either side in spring and autumn.
Thank you. And just to follow on, I noticed that particularly on Motueka Valley Highway, you've recently just done a high mow. And once again, we get a lot of criticism about that because it seems that it just leaves it looking like it's been cut with a chain, looks ugly for a while till it recovers. And then you see some of the debris drops onto the road and stuff like that. Is there any way we can tidy that sort of high corridor mow, the one that goes up the side? It just leaves an ugly sort of impression in your mind when you see it for some distance.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one that we do know causes a stir publicly. So we do send communication out about it, particularly when private residents, have vegetation on road reserve and they don't want it cut, to keep it cut back to the outside the envelope, which we do publish as well. I guess it comes down to money. In New Zealand, the method of cutting roadside vegetation is flail mower or saws, but that's a lot slower for bigger stuff. So you typically see the flail mower going with heavier flails. At the point we're in the Alliance area, we would have 2,214 kilometres of road that we'd have to treat. That's one, because the mower obviously goes down one side and then back. So the cost of doing it with anything other than the flail mower would be prohibitive. We do typically have people on call, our patrolmen, that do go and pick up slash that drops onto the road. However, it's hard to pick everything up, and it is you do find slash sitting on roadsides and in water tables for a wee while till we get to it. It is ugly, but it's unfortunately it is a financially driven decision.
Thank you. And then finally, Libby's got some photos up there, and you'll recognise that. I think if you go to the next page as well, Libby, or maybe not, maybe carry on. No, the other way, maybe. Just yes, there, that'll do. Just in relation to Kerrs Hill Road, and you know that we've got some commentators that use that road that thinks they're experts on roading, but and I take it this was done for drainage, but it does seem incredibly deep for drainage, and I guess is there a plan to put some metal in there or something like that? Because if anyone ran off there, that'd do a little bit of damage to their car.
Sure. So the whole concept of drainage for a road is to keep the pavement layers dry. So that the depth of that particular channel has been surveyed to be 100 mil, 50 mil lower than the lowest pavement layer.
So I'll jump in here. The design for that particular channel was based around the existing pavement depth information we have for that section of road. And best practice says that we would like to have the invert of that channel, the lowest point of that channel, at least 250 millimeters below the lowest pavement layer in that road. And that allows to make sure that the pavement stays dry. There's a lot of water that sheets across that land on the, uphill side, on the other side of that channel from that forestry area. if you've ever pulled off the side of that road anywhere, you don't have to go far and you'll get your vehicle stuck. So yeah, there is a huge amount of water, and it's a cut-off drain for that water that's sheeting across into the pavement, which is to try and save the pavement on that section of road. In terms of the depth of it, it is based on that. The shoulder grade was very carefully constructed at a 1 in 4, so it is a recoverable angle.
I know that's good. Thank you. Thank you for your response to the questions, and thank you again for the work you both do. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll just move to Councillor Ellis and then I'll conclude this session.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you guys for your presentation. It's always lovely to talk to you, and I really appreciate the explanations around what you're doing. And thank you too, Drew. There was amazing quick action with some issues I've raised at our last meeting, which I really appreciate. I just wanted to clarify something. What has been raised with me just generally, and I've also observed myself, that we've seen that we've done some patches on the roads, and you know, my favourite pothole that we might mention. I've observed that on the periphery of where we've repaired it, or where you've repaired it, your team's repaired it, we seem to see the problem carries on past the fix. So there's degradation on the edges of where we've done a fix. Do you have any explanation about why that occurs? Because we're seeing it, and I ran over the last couple we've gotten fixed, and relatively quickly we've seen issues, and I understand, you know, that can be around the water issues, but do you have any explanation about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I guess your favourite pothole has been fixed well and truly. It dug out and asphalted over, which is really good. I guess that when we go to a section of road to fix a fault, we fix the immediate fault that's deteriorated, and then we also go a bit past it either side so that we cover anything that might happen in the future. As the road continues to deteriorate, the pavement either side will start failing. So I guess it's just a continuation of that failure that isn't visible at the time when we're on site. Otherwise, we would have grabbed that as well when we're there. So it is a common thing, and we do try and capture it by going either side. But it's a bit of a juggle as to how far you go, you know, as to what risk will be that the road will deteriorate quickly enough to have that new patch and then continue failures past it.
Mr. Kirby.
Perhaps to just add also, Drew, there are times when there may be a pothole, but it requires a major fix, but you just fill the pothole temporarily until you get back and do the major fix. And that's why some people think they've done the permanent repair when you haven't. You've just done a holding pattern until you get back into a proper repair. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. And just a couple from me before we move on. So Councillor Dowler raised around the, what do we call it, the inspection and that beautiful coloured picture that you put up there, the graph of all the different things. And obviously, we're aware that there's some faults, and you gave quite a good explanation around that. I guess my question is, how do we track to mitigate some of that, and what are we doing in partnership to try and reduce? So when you come and present the next quarter report, those colours will be slightly different. That's my first question. The second question, so that's probably to you, Jeremy. The second question is for you, Drew, is around, I attended the Maraho Senior Bay Association meeting the other day, and one of their concerns is that when the mower comes through, and as you've explained, it throws debris around. So some of the debris that they observed was significant enough that it caused hazard for them on their push bikes. And I get that you've got an on-call. Can you tell me what the priority is and how that on-call is activated when there is big debris? So it's two questions and then one more.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. In regards to the fault graph, I think was the one you were talking about. So the investment into the network is should have an impact on that over time. It's not going to be something that I think will show a huge amount of effect by, say, next quarter, but over a 3-year funding cycle, I'd say that should show some effect, especially with the increased investment into sealed road resurfacing. But it's a lag indicator of the network condition. So what I mean by that is that the investment into the network, decreased investment won't show up immediately in terms of more faults, and that will show up later. The same thing on the inverse of that, increased investment will not have an immediate impact on faults decreasing. It will take some time for that investment to show that change.
Thank you, Drew.
Councillor Walker, I do enjoy your questions. The vegetation on the road is the on-call patrolman would be activated by the tail pilot of the mower, noticing a considerable amount of vegetation on the road or larger items of vegetation. That being said, we can go and treat the area, sweep it off with the broom truck, pick up larger pieces. However, the winds still may blow the smaller leaf type matter from the edge of the road onto the road. And I guess we tackle that on a side-by-side basis through a CSR. If we get a CSR, then we'll dispatch a patrol truck to go and treat the road again.
Thank you for that explanation. I did suggest that they put a CSR in as soon as they notice it. And lastly, on behalf of the Mighty Mott community, using your phrase, not mine, thank you for the raw treatment you gave us on our asphalt. Thank you for your partnershiping. And it is a good news story when, as an alliance, you come back and you give back to our community, not just in doing the mahi that you're paid to do and we work with, but the path that you put through with the saltwater baths and the other things that you do. And often that's done under the radar and our communities don't know. So publicly today, I'd like to thank you and congratulate you and look forward to more partnering in the future and not just in my ward. Thank you. We will now move on to the Community Infrastructure Group Activity Report. Councillors, that's on page 16, management update.
Thank you, councillors. I'll take my management update as read and open for questions. Since the Local Water's Done Well paper was put together, we've had some more information come through last week. We've got about 7, I think, fact sheets and the legislation on the requirement for water service delivery plans is likely to be signed off in the next couple of weeks. They said August. And then there's another bill coming in December that gives us indications of how we form the entities. If we want to go alone or if we want to join up with other councils. Can I say that we've been working together at officer level on what we do, and we'll be coming to you as a council with a report to your 12th of September meeting, outlining what we're proposing to do to get your feedback and hopefully resolution to progress along the lines that we're suggesting. We're going to be following 2 tracks. One is developing a water services development plan, delivery plan for ourselves, but on a parallel track, working with adjacent councillors who are willing to work with us to see for all of us whether it's better for us to go alone or work together. So we'll be coming back to you on the 12th of September with that paper and asking for endorsement on the proposals we're putting forward.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Kirby, can you just talk me through the health and safety lead indicators? So the observations that you've got listed in terms of, are they just observations? Is there anything that's come up in those observations that have been dealt with further? And then the number of courses attended by staff, are they internal or external?
Good question. I might have to ask Mike to give us the feedback on that one. Thanks.
Yeah, we certainly do follow up when there's issues on site. Those observations, we basically we choose a site, preferably with contractors on site working, and if we do find everything, we deal with it at the time with the contractors. But yeah, the couple of ones that I've done recently, I actually haven't found anything. It's been a year or so since I've found anything of significance. So then the other question was,
Internal, external courses.
yeah, that's a combination. It's whatever opportunities there. Sometimes there's internal training. For example, we will next Friday is our annual induction with our contractors, our Clean Waters contractors. So that'll be logged as training, but that's done by the contractors, both with, because it's a partnership, done with both my staff and their staff.
Yeah.
And then there's others where they'll go away to be trained. It might be a vehicle, four-wheel drive training or something like that. So it's quite a range.
Yeah, just one final. So in the health and safety observations, if there's a concern, does that filter through anywhere? Does it go to audit and risk? Does it go? So if there's a concern that's raised and it's mitigated, where does it get reported to? Does it get to governance somewhere, or is it just?
So that we have the Vault system, which is now called, I can't remember some of the name now, where any incidents or issues are health safety ones are raised. So that goes through to our HR team. And then I understand the ELT have on part of their weekly meeting is they look at health and safety, and anything of significance is raised at that meeting.
So yes, I can confirm that we do that. Executive leadership meet every week, and we go through all the incidences that have been recorded, and we make sure that corrections are made or investigations are undertaken so that we minimise the risk of further events of such nature.
My final question is, does that then go to audit and risk?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. We're going to go to board member Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. And excuse me if this has been discussed around the council table, but board members don't tend to necessarily hear all the things that have been discussed or resolved or queried. I'm just asking about the Whakarewa Manaui Street roundabout, the sudden increase in cost.
I might just get you to pause at the moment, and we'll bring that up when we get to that report, if that's okay with you. Do I have any other questions from Mr. Kirby's report before we move on? We'll prompt you when it's the right time. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on. I don't see Russell in the room. Is someone else? Oh, Adam. My apologies. Adam, we're now working on the program delivery update, which is page 20.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take the report as read. Just a couple of things Russell asked me to mention. Since the last report, obviously we've shown here we've completed 5 projects, and they're all on time and within budget. Particularly the top 2, which was Motueka stormwater discharge. That project, we did have concerns, particularly around the height of the water. The water table was quite high, but we're lucky with the weather during that project, and we actually finished 6 weeks ahead of time. It went really well, so we're pretty happy, proud of that project. And the other one, Street for People for Richmond, we actually got a letter from NZTA congratulating us on finishing that project. We were the first council in New Zealand to actually finish the Streets for People project. So pretty well done. So I'll take questions.
Board Member Armstrong, do you want to ask your question now, please? Or we could do it in transport later with Jamie.
You.
Oh, you can raise it now. Thank you.
I pretty well asked it anyhow. Why the reason or reasons for the large jump in cost for that roundabout to Manaui Street.
Yeah, Rob Grady's across this project, so I'll try and give you a view. We went out for pricing for that roundabout, and the pricing came back quite a bit higher. I'm not sure the details of why, but we did have to acquire some extra land from the properties around where the roundabout's going, so that would have increased the price. That's all I know about that project, unfortunately. But I can come back to you if you want more. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want some more or? Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Adam. Just a couple. 1144, the Motueka Recreation Centre water facility upgrade. It seems that project's on hold. What is that project about? It seems a huge amount of money.
Yeah, so that project is sort of following on from the new Motueka water treatment plant. And this is mostly all about keeping the water pressure on for the warehouse fire system. So that project, basically, we've got it on hold at the moment because we're having discussions with the warehouse about whether we can get another solution for keeping that pressure around that network during a fire event. Yeah, so that's basically a booster pump system that was going to go in with storage next to the rec centre.
We'll just go to Mike, sorry. I see he's keen to speak.
Recent developments on that one. We're in discussions with Warehouse. We have a standard that we comply with. We comply with the FW2 standard for firefighting in the district, and that is a decision made by council in 2016 because we could not afford to go to any higher standard across the district. So, and as previously with the Warehouse, they where they needed a higher standard, they have actually paid for the upgrade to meet the standard that they require. So we're in discussions with them. We've explained the situation. We still do need that site because we've got the extremities of the town need the flow and pressure for firefighting as well. So we need, and we cannot use the existing bores without further treatment, which would be extremely expensive. So we're constructing a storage reservoir there and pumps to be able to top it up in the off-peak times and basically overnight, and then boost the area if there's a fire in the region or there's a sudden demand. For example, we've got 2 bulk filling stations in the street there now. And when if they're both being used, it does have quite a draw on the system, and we need to be able to boost that supply. So as I say, there's recent developments, and we will be progressing that.
Just follow up, Madam Chair, on this one, and then I've got a couple more. Just Mike, so is that going to take any land out of commission for parking or anything? Seems like quite a project to be doing tanks and stuff like that just for storage.
It's always been planned that that area would be required for storage. It's been in the program for quite some time. And we always knew that those bores would need a significant upgrade if we were going to use them in the future. So that land would be taken for a treatment plant. And a treatment plant also needs storage for your contact tanks for chlorine and so on. So this is not something new or unexpected, no.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to my next question, which is 1327 tank of filling stations. As you've said, Richmond and Motueka are complete. Waitford on hold due to funding needing another 200K for the main extension. That seems a huge amount of money just to put in a tanker filling thing.
It's not the tank, it's actually the water main. It's several hundred meters of a new water pipe we'd have to install to supply the pressure and flow that's required for a tanker filling station. And we've also had difficulty finding an appropriate site. So we're now looking at a possible site in Brightwater, but we need to speak to the landowners. But we think we've got an option that's suitable in Brightwater.
Right, thank you. And then finally, Tapawera 1494, I'm not sure this is Mike or Adam, Tapawera water treatment plant and bore renewal. There's a little bit of text there, and then it says, due to the complexity, could take 3 years to deliver. What's the complexity around that?
It's basically a total rebuild, and we've got to find a location for new bores. Those bores have pretty much done their dash. And so we might actually have to relocate it. So that adds further complexity as finding a suitable site. I'm not sure, Adam, if you're aware of any other issues around it.
Yeah, particularly the bores. We've got to drill some bores and then test them over the period, the extremes of weather. So it normally takes over a year to do that testing.
So the likely budget figure there is that you'd likely to be able to do all of that within 3 years within that budget, 2.72.
Yeah, so they're busy scoping it at the moment, but yeah, we believe so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further questions, councillor Daki?
Yeah, thank you. Question probably for Adam. Lower Queen Street Bridge upgrade. I've had a few people query already say the year timeline indicated. Is that a year of construction? Is that a year of planning and build? What sort of time could residents expect to be going across a temporary road for bridge construction?
Yeah, my understanding is it's going to be about 6 months. So yeah, so that's the planning, you know, getting ready. We've got to build that diversion for people to go around the site and things. So it's
A follow-up question. Another question I've been asked by a couple of residents is there a cycle underpass, footpath being designed into the design to enable crossing under the road as opposed to over? Through the chair, the good news is yes, absolutely. You know, that any time the council is through its stormwater activity building a new structure, because the same thing's going to happen on Main Road Hope near Network Tasman, is we know the community wants to be able to safely pass under the road, so yes.
But it will be flooded in heavy rain.
Any further comments on that? No? Good, okay, well, we'll move on to Mike Shearer's part, which is page 77 for councillors.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morning, councillors. I'll take the report as read. It's got a couple of things that cropped up recently. We had quite a major water break at Martin Farm Road yesterday. It took just over 8 hours. It was 8 hours and 5 minutes to repair, so we had to notify that through to Taumata Arawa. And we did have water supplied in that time as per their requirements. There was a leak on the pipe, which scarred out an anchor block. And as a result, we had to drain the whole pipeline back to the reservoir, which took a bit of time. And then we had to reset the anchor block. So it became quite a major effort. It's a bit of a concern. We've hit this, I think, the third break on Martin Farm Road in the past, well, this year. We don't have it up for a renewal in the plan. And we're looking at the cause, because it is a PVC pipe, so it's not that old. So we'll go back and have a look at the modes of failure and just see if that's one that may need to be brought forward. But it is all up and running now. Just coming on to waste management. With the LTP savings, as you're aware, we've had to cut a few items. And this year, the daily rubbish collection at Kaiteriteri has been cut. That was done over 8 weeks. There are options for people to use the commercial suppliers for bins or bags. So it'll be up to them. And as I say, that was mentioned in the report as well. We also received notice from Kaiteriteri Recreation Reserve Board that they would like us to remove our recycling bin from their site to be able to do some work on their car park. And so one of our engineers is actually out on site today trying to find a suitable location for that. Not sure how many options we've got, but we'll come back to council with a decision on that. We've also done quite a bit of infiltration work in the area in Richmond, basically between Jubilee Park and Hillplow Heights and between Aotea Drive and Waverley Street. And we've found a huge number of failed gully traps. And that's either gully traps that are level with the ground, surrounding ground, or they have been knocked in at the back to put pipes in there not sealed off, or they are just too low. And the other major cause of failure has been down pipes from the roof connected straight into gully traps. We were surprised by how many of those. So once we get around and repair them, we should have quite a significant reduction for that area in II issues. So that's looking promising. But it is going to come at a bit of a cost with all that reactive. They say it's far more work than we anticipated in that area, but it will have long-term benefits. That's all from me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I am aware that we haven't done transportation. We will go there next. Does anyone have questions from Mike's report? Councillor Dowler.
2 questions, Mike. Just 7-11 on page whatever, 84.
85, 84, yeah.
Talks about Surrey Road water main was turned off for approximately 2 hours to repair a leak on the private side of the meter. I'm a bit like, I only have one property in Motueka that has a meter, but whenever I go to it, there's a tap on the main and then the meter and then my backflow valve. So why wouldn't this have a tap between the water main and the meter?
Our bylaw puts that as an option. We recommend that people put their tap on to isolate it. But a lot of we don't install them. We have the Toby and we have a tailpipe, and what the property owner that does after that, or the builder does, is up to them. It is a bit of an issue because just recently we've had a couple of issues where the Toby has been opened and the property owner has expected it to be closed. And what they don't realize is that it's their responsibility. Any water going through the meter, they are liable for, unless it's a leak on the connection to the Toby. So I was actually just discussing this with our water accounts team this morning, and we're actually going to do a Newsline article just reminding people about their responsibilities. And where we have had this issue, we've encouraged people to put in their own valves on their side of it.
Yeah, no, it just brought my attention that my tap is before the meter. Then my backflow valve, then my pipe goes to the house. So when you turn the tap off, it isolates the meter the whole 9 yards. So
yep.
Yeah, it's obviously the way it was put in when council did it.
Well, we have a tap before the meter, so we can isolate the meter to work on it or replace it.
Yeah. So I thought
that's council's, that's a public water supply system there. So in theory, no one should be tampering with the public system, which includes that tap. However, we do allow people to use it in an emergency, like a major break, to isolate it.
Yeah.
But they should actually have their own tap.
That's fine. 720, talking about generators at the treatment plant. In a previous life, I used to sell generators and put them into old people's homes and bits and pieces. We used to do a maintenance contract. We went around every 6 months to make sure that do we have anything like that in place? I see that this thing's got to be serviced and blah, 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 blah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so those generators are a critical asset.
Yeah.
So we have a life cycle at which they're replaced, which is, I think, 20 years, irrespective of condition. And yes, they are tested they are run every month and under load to make sure they're actually tested properly. And yeah, that is part of our contractors' routine maintenance they've got to do. So it hasn't had a lot of use. So unfortunately, Nick's team have identified that they'd like to take it over. It's not as critical an asset what they want to use it for as ours. We can't afford to have a failure when we need it running here.
Thank you for your questions, Councillor Dowler. We'll move on to Deputy Mayor Bryant and then to Councillor Kinnemore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mike, just on page 84, once again talking about water and water leaks, the one at Wakefield on Saturday, 27th of July, which turned into a major incident. This seems to be an ongoing problem, and I guess we've talked about it before because of the ageing pipes around Wakefield that was put in 75. That was quite some considerable time ago. But what the response and the time, and even as recently as last night, there's still fenced off around that site so that people can't access their property because it's now been sealed and has been for a few days. I just do wonder, what does a leak like that cost us? Because it must have been like it was on a Saturday and the team were there to 8 or 9 in the evening to get that job completed from, I phoned it in about 1 in the afternoon. I'm not sure what time they turned up on site, but I pretty much saw it happening and there was a huge outlet of water coming out. It was like an irrigation pipe. Yeah.
It depends a lot on what the reinstatement is. If you back into a road reinstatement, that adds significantly to the cost. So this one up the road here at Upper Queen Street, I think that is about $90,000 in the end.
How much?
About 90,000, if I remember correctly. That was two pipes that went and it blew up, over 50 meters of the road that all had to be reinstated. But typically we can spend between 5 and 15,000 on a repair, water repair. And of course, a lot of that is traffic management nowadays as well. Yep.
Wakefield, water pipes at Wakefield.
Yes.
When is that due to start?
You're talking about the remaining bit of Edward Street, because much of Edward Street's been done already.
Well,
And there's various other ones that are in the program, yes.
and you've done quite a bit of Pitfield Road, but
On the whole of Pitfield Road, just about, yes.
Whitby Road will be some of the oldest that remaining, I'd have thought.
Yep, that's definitely on our program, and we're just going through a review of all our asset conditions of pipes based on recent breaks and how that indicates what other similar pipes, similar era, similar situation might be up for similar failures.
So a final question just relates. It's not reliant on getting the new trunk main from Wakefield to do these repairs to the existing pipe work and
No, it's
the trunk main.
well, the sooner the trunk main happens, the better, because we can reduce some of the pressures on these pipes from the existing source. And yeah, so it's not dependent. The replacements are not dependent on that. No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on now to councillor McKinnon.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Mike, you talked about stormwater egress and the pipes in Richmond and that how you found all these faults. Do you have a program to go back and confirm these faults have remained? Because I'm worried about people after we've done and fixed it, they'll just put it back again.
Yeah, there's through you, Madam Chair, there is a history of doing these on a 3 or 5 year cycle, which I've been involved in the past. And we go back there and you find the same properties with the same issues. So a lot of the work that we do now has to be a permanent fixture, because in the past with the downpass, for example, they just twisted out the way and it discharged onto the lawn or somewhere else. But now they physically have to connect it into the pipe network. And gully traps, yes, we do. So we go back and inspect them after so many months to make sure they're all done, and also in a permanent fashion rather than just a temporary fix.
So do we have any legal teeth to stop them coming back and doing this, or is it just a? Yeah.
Sorry, I just didn't catch the first bit there. Do we have a legal?
Yeah, do we have any legal teeth? Do we have any legislation that says?
Yeah.
Stop it, we'll take you to court, or?
Yes, absolutely. So the Local Government Act gives us that, and we can give them 60 days to repair it. And if they don't repair it within 60 days, we go and repair it and charge them for it.
Thank you. And I just have one further question and then we will break for a morning tea break. So Mike, on page 85 and it's point 7.22 and it's the reoccurring event of foaming at the Murchison wastewater treatment plant. I don't know if we've been able to investigate and come up with why or how, but I guess my question in governance is, obviously this puts pressure on our system, and what risk is that placing on us moving forward? And do these events come under our normal wear and tear budgets, or is this an expense that we're going to have to work through? Thanks.
So these sort of things where something has been discharged are really hard to track down unless it's happening regularly and you can follow it up the pipe, which we do from time to time. But often by the time you get up into the catchment, all evidence has gone. I say the previous time we've had these sort of issues was a meth lab was found in the town. And we do occasionally some of our testing that we've done for national reasons. They picked up those sort of chemicals in the water. That it does tend to often I think what happens is they just flush out what's left or and then it's gone. You don't see it for a while. What there will be a concern, and it often recovers within a couple of days. You might have to aerate a bit more and push the plant a bit harder. But it hasn't in the past lasted for too long. Problem is, if this is a continuous problem, if it is continuous, then we actually have got a much better chance of tracking it down, and we can follow it up. So, we'll keep an eye out and see what we can find. Yeah.
And no doubt you work in collaboration with those who would be more concerned, well, not so much more concerned, but have the capacity to regulate some of that antisocial behaviour. Thank you. At this point, we will adjourn and stop for a morning tea break. We'll be back here at, I've been just told, 11. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, team. See you soon. So I know that our agenda is a little bit out of order, as Councillor Dowler pointed out to me. We will now go to the transportation update from Jamie and Councillor. That's on page 56.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to take it as read and answer any questions.
Oh, no, there are some questions. I see a lot of movement on the left side of me. We'll start with Councillor Maru and then we'll go to Councillor Ellis.
I was just actually trying to quickly find a page. Thank you, Madam Chair. Jamie, I'm sure it's in here somewhere because it's all about transportation. My question is, there was a petition presented today by this honourable person sitting at the table about the safety concerns of the concrete barriers. And I know we had that discussion around here before about the safety ones in Richmond, which we decided to remove. So what's the next process about addressing that petition?
Through the chair. So we talked a little bit about the separators in the report presented to the full council on the 2nd of May. So that summarised the feedback that we'd had on Aranui Road and recommended a number of changes at that time. And at that time, some of the changes that were being made were to simplify the layout of the cycleways. So the separated cycleway behind those separators was changing from a two-way kind of shared zone to a single direction bike-only lane, simplifying some of the intersection crossings. Removing planter boxes, making a few other modest changes. And that was on the back of the feedback, the summary of all the feedback we'd had at that stage. And the summary of feedback also noted that about 17% of respondents to the survey had described some level of dissatisfaction with those concrete separators. So not an overwhelmingly negative response, but noted nonetheless. My view on the way forward is I don't think there's any new information that was tabled as part of that petition. So I would probably recommend that the council continue to monitor as it decided to on the 2nd of May. And if any sort of new relevant information came to light, then there might be a basis then for considering the options. So I guess the recommendation on the 2nd of May was see how the new modified layout beds in, allow that time to bed in, and go from there.
Just got one more. So I'm not sure if you had a chance to read the petition, Jamie, but there was actual accounts of people hitting them, a young child falling into the road, no car was coming. So based on the information you have now, how does our risk assessment of the safety of that stack up against some incidents that have been reported through this, and has our view changed?
Yeah, I don't have any sort of specific advice on that. There's never a clear-cut best answer. It's all degrees of risk and degrees of preference. I'll note that after the separators were removed on Salisbury Road, we received some feedback saying people felt less safe, So everybody has an opinion, right? And every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So I don't have any sort of clear risk-based calculation that would give a steer on this.
Okay, then I'll keep going. You look at me. I guess for me, Jamie, as ultimately the decision of councils. So the last thing I want is to hear that a cycle's been injured, let alone a child cyclist has been injured and their safety is compromised. And so I guess I'm looking for that reassurance that the concrete, we've done an assessment and the concrete separators are deemed to increase safety, not create a new hazard that we hadn't thought about. So if somebody has an accident, falls into the traffic as the car's coming as a result of those concrete barriers, I don't want to sit around this table and think we didn't have a robust conversation about that either. So there's that +4. So somewhere there has to be some assessment that going, best practice, best knowledge we have, hand on heart, I believe this is safer for all users of the road.
Was that a question?
Yeah, I guess, is there? So in your professional opinion, because I guess that's what we rely on, are these concrete separators creating a more safer environment for cyclists of all ages than them not being there at all?
Like I said earlier, I don't think we have enough information to give a proper assessment on that.
Thank you, Councillor Murray, for your concerns, because I'm sure that's concerns of quite a few of us councillors around the table, and appreciate your response. Jamie, we'll move on now to Councillor Ellis, and then we will go to Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Jamie, for your explanation, because you've kind of answered some questions I already had. I just want to ask a quick question regarding your last statement about we don't really have that information. Are we going to go looking for that?
Through the chair, one option to satisfy the direction the council gave us on the 2nd of May would be to conduct another survey after a period of time and try and tease out if there's a clear preference in the community about how they feel. Since we didn't get a clear preference from the community previously that they want these separated time, perhaps we could conduct another survey. So that would be my recommendation. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So just timeline would be good at some stage if you could give us a heads up on that. And just one other comment. I did notice in the report that there's a significant drop in service requests. My assumption is that means that, the maintenance and that work is being done, and so people are not finding it a problem. So I just wanted to give you guys a pat on the back for that. That's an excellent result.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. We'll move on to Councillor Butler. Then we have Councillor Dowler and then Councillor Kindermoth.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask about the injuries, the crashes, and given that the government has changed its priorities from the last government about road safety and prevention of injuries, I'm just wondering, we have got a increase here in the last year of serious crashes, and there aren't any fatal crashes, but that's probably just circumstance. So my question is about where does this data go to in government? Who do we report it to? And do you think that it actually goes into building a national picture about increasing road accidents or road crashes?
Through the chair, I've noted in 5.27 that we have prepared or are preparing a more detailed presentation. So that might be some of the information that we're going to present will help councillors understand the national picture and how nationally compares to what we're seeing locally. I will note that the current or the previous government developed the Road to Zero, sort of national road safety strategy, which set a number of targets and a number of plans and actions to help achieve those targets. The new government haven't yet published an updated road safety strategy, so we're not sure what the directives will be exactly. So the previous strategy sought a reduction of 40% of fatal and serious crashes by 2030. And some of the key mechanisms were speed limit reductions, little bit of investment in median barriers and sort of simple road safety devices, but that's kind of a little bit up in the air right now. We'll talk about that a bit more in our presentation about some of the things that are happening nationally and how we can help deliver those regionally. I mean, we're a small player in the national road safety space. And what you'll see when we present it is that our rates of death and serious injury are actually a bit lower per kilometre than some other networks in the country. So we're not noted as being a problem child.
Right, okay, so this presentation, is that going to be a workshop or will it be at one of our committee meetings?
We were envisaging to bring it to a committee meeting.
A committee meeting, oh, that'd be good. Yeah, okay, thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Dowler.
Yeah, this could be a little bit contentious what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Number 5/18 starts off talking about 3 culverts to replace, etc., and it says this work was completed utilising the last of the NZTA Special Purpose Roading funding. That's what SPR stands for in my world. NZTA confirmed they will no longer be offering the SPR funding for the maintenance and renewals of the Tautranui Road and Purple Springs Road, resulting in the subsidy coming down from 100 to 51%. We don't actually own those roads, do we? We just are a dock road and we maintain them with that funding. Is that correct?
Through the chair, well, it's not correct. We are legally responsible for those roads. They're on road reserve, which is under the control of Tasman District Council. We're currently still, and I think I've mentioned this before, negotiating with DOC about financial responsibility, given the bulk of Tautranui Road only serves the DOC estate. But as legislation stands, the roads are in a public road reserve that is controlled by Tasman District Council.
Well, that's completely different how I understand it, because when the road to Tautranui got cleaned out a few years ago and it flooded, our road went so far and then the DOC road went so far further. So that must have changed maybe. I'm not going to go into the detail now. Let's talk offline or something, but I am concerned that we could end up paying for something that we shouldn't be.
I'll close it out perhaps by saying, there is a difference between the legal responsibility and who will take on the financial responsibility for providing a level of service. So I think I've mentioned it before, if that road fell down in a storm and the council decided it wasn't worth ratepayers funding all of that, then our one option would be to put up a road closed sign, right? There's nothing stopping the council from doing that. It's a method of control that keeps people safe, but it might not meet one of our custom DOC's, need for a level of service for the Tautranui campground. So they would have a motivation to fund some work, we would imagine.
Thank you. No further. Thank you. Thank you for your response, Jamie. Councillor Kindermoff.
I withdraw my question.
I respect that. Thank you. Councillor Dakey.
Thank you, through the chair. Question for Jamie for a start. With the cycle lanes that are in place now, Streets for People's finished. You hear one person say there's no bikes on it, next person says it's full of bikes. Get a lot of mixed messaging. The data around actual users, we obviously had a baseline at the start. We're taking some measurements now. Are we going to keep collecting that data? And with the data we collect, how are we going to share that to people? And what sort of timeline are we sharing it every can you just give an outlay of how we're going to share that data if it's going to be collected?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, good question. So the way we have been collecting data on cyclist numbers is every February we will put out counters at specific points. So it's in the form of tubes that pick up the number of movements across those tubes. We are investigating this year whether there's some ways of collecting better data that, collecting data for just a week, once a year is a indicative only at best. So if we had continuous data like we have on the Great Taste Trail, we have some continuous count sites that give us much richer data. There is a challenge in those urban street environments of actually counting exactly what it is you want to count and not miscounting all the other things that are happening. So it's a challenge. But yes, we will continue to count. We've looked at what Christchurch City have done. They've got real-time counters with big electronic numbers that show everybody who's in the vicinity how many cyclists have been past that point. So that's sort of a Rolls-Royce way of doing it. We would like to maintain good data and make that more available. So it's an aspiration we've got.
Second question follow-up, it might be for building services, but it also relates. So it's to do with the e-bus, and obviously we don't have a central terminal for the bus stop as such. So it's around the toilet facilities. I've had a few people query this, is this council building the sort of toilet for the terminal out there? And if so, is there any plans to, make it more publicly signage added, or what's the sort of feedback? And is that going to be part of the e-bus review, I guess, too? Because I'm hearing a lot of people that say, got the kids on the bus, whatever, sort of those things when they come out to Richmond.
Through the chair, I might just ask to clarify, are you talking about this central terminus here on Queen Street?
Yes, because it's acting as a default terminal. So you're getting a lot of patronage, high user numbers, long trips. So, just if we're not going to provide a dedicated terminal in the short term, just around the signage and access to toilets for the bus users, I guess, is a question.
Right. So, at the moment during, I guess, regular council business hours, these toilets in the foyer are the ones that tend to be used. And in fact, the council have had to increase the cleaning frequency to take into account the extra use from bus passengers. Outside of business hours, the nearest public toilet is just over in Waring Car Park, so a short walk through there. There's no plan to build new toilet facilities on or near this particular site. Yeah.
So I guess in the short term, what I've heard from residents is perhaps they would like improved signage indicating that there's toilets in here, just so that they're aware, because if they're new to the area, they get off the bus, they're sort of a bit lost, because it's a long way over there. So yeah, if you could follow that up and we could maybe look at that, it'd be great. I'll follow that up. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final questions are from myself. I note, Jamie, that you've put in here at 5.6 about 5.7, the planned bringing lighting closer to urban standards, street lighting. I guess my question is, which I get asked numerously, is are we acknowledging Dark Skies project, and will the lighting that you're proposing to put in be environmentally friendly whilst not causing, obviously part of lighting is around keeping people safe, so I don't want to compromise that, but are we environmentally friendly, and what does it mean for the dark skies?
Yes, excellent question through the chair. So all of the street lighting that we are installing is kind of dark sky compliant in that it is directed downwards, and LED lights are very, very good at doing this. The light spill from LED lights is much lower than the old sort of sodium street lighting that we used to use. And the Kelvin sort of the heat or shade of the light is less than 3000 K. They're the ones we use now. So it's a slightly yellower light compared with the 4000 Kelvin very stark white light, which has been found to be more disruptive to certain species. So yeah, the lighting we use is compliant with sort of dark sky standards. We're very careful to keep up to speed and up to date with those standards.
Thank you for your response. And I guess I don't need to ask that when it comes up on our next report, because it's a given now that that's where we go. We don't alter from that current path.
Correct.
Awesome, thank you. And my last one is that I got it in the neck the other day when from several people in our community around the e-bus. So I guess my question is, when there's a significant incident that happens, and you know it happened in Nelson, where roads were closed for a period of time, and there obviously was a delay or buses had to be rerouted. How do we message that to our community? Because I had a dad bring several kids in to meet a bus, and the bus didn't come, and it didn't come for 20 to 30 minutes. And obviously when you look at the news headlines, you understand why the bus got delayed or rerouted. But I guess for that whānau in particular, the frustration of not knowing, and they could have put plan B in place had they known. So when we have an event, how do we get that messaging out for that service?
That's an excellent point. I might need to maybe seek some more information about that from our public transport operations team. But what I would say is those can be very dynamic situations. So it's really hard to put out a meaningful message that captures everybody's questions. What I would say is that the real-time information that we have available through the app and through the website, which actually displays how far away the next bus is, and is very useful. So I'd hope that everybody who is wondering what's happening with the buses is using their real-time app. But I'll take that away and talk to our operations team and see how they feel about the messaging that's going out. Yeah.
So I guess my last question is, in response to what you've just said, could we do some comms around the importance of our real-time app and acknowledge that potentially there was a hiccup in service from a power greater than ourselves, but that's why we have a real-time app. So use it as a promotional message, perhaps.
Yep, I'll follow that up. Yep.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your report. And there's no further questions. And mindful of time, we will move on now to Grant Rubin's report. And councillors, that's page 67.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take the report as read, and I'm happy to take any questions. However, I would like to, if I may, invite Jane Park up to give a quick overview of pensioner housing maintenance, and then Tony Strange will give a bit of an update on the Aquatic Centre cleaning.
Fantastic, and welcome back and welcome to the table.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. So we've recently done a, thanks to Nick's team, a survey of all council buildings, and the cottages were included in that. And it was really great to see that there was no urgent or health and safety issues with the cottages as they stand now. So that kind of gives me a wee bit of reassurance that what we have been doing is working. Typically the council cottages get some fairly major currently refurbishment between tenants. We've had quite a bit of tenant turnover in the last couple of years. So at that time, any refurbishment is aesthetic, but also we're trying to wet room bathrooms that have previously had steps into showers and things like that, so that the tenants can stay longer in their own home without having to go into care. That's obviously affected the budgets a wee bit with such a big turnover, but we are managing that okay. And also there's reactive maintenance if a tenant brings something up, or if a tenant's been in there for a significant length of time. We've done replacements of carpets and painting as well.
Fantastic, thank you. We might just continue with Tony. And then we'll go to councillor for questions, because I'm sure there's probably at least one coming. Thank you, Tony.
Through you, Madam Chair, I just thought it might be appropriate to talk about the recent communication you probably have all heard or seen on Facebook around, I guess, some communication and cleaning at the aquatic centre. I'm actually working on a response back to a journalist today around that, and I have to say that timing is everything. If you haven't seen the post, it's about customers being concerned about the cleanliness of the aquatic centre. Amongst other things, it's to do with the toilet systems that are currently in place. Certainly some problems with customers being able to use them, flush toilets and things like that, so it's difficult. We have been working on improving that situation, and I've already approved installing new toilet systems in the ladies' toilet, which is 4 toilets. The problem with the current design of the aquatic centre is that all of the mechanisms are in the breeze block. Probably something that we won't do at the Motueka community pool. So just to let you know. So we are going to be doing some things, and of course I guess the communication came through. We'd already organised to have this work done, and it's starting in 3 weeks' time. Previous to that,
Take this photo if the weather's good.
there's someone talking to us. Anyway, TV1. Are we on TV1? Oh, that's good. Yeah. Previous to this as well, I regularly meet with Vaughan and his CLN team, and we had agreed to provide a deep clean of the facility. It's fair to say that the cleaning regime down there is mostly done by the lifeguards, and a lot of the lifeguards are teenagers, and sometimes teenagers possibly aren't the most well, I think you know where I'm going, but it's yeah, I do have one actually, but so we had already put a lot of things in place. As I said, timing's everything. We acknowledge that we do respond to customer services, customer requests, and we do take them on board. I spoke to a lady today who sent through a service request, and I was pleased to be able to just say the things that I'm telling you, that these things are in place. So again, there will be more of a focus. The deep clean is going to happen quarterly, so that it will help. It'll lift the facility as well, and maybe make not so much of a problem for the regular daily cleans. The other things we're doing there, and some of the correspondence I have to respond to, is about not only the toilets changing, and that'll happen right throughout all the facility because they're all the same mechanisms. They're these terrible old flushing mechanisms. We are going to carry out some rectification and painting. There was a painting program that was completed a while ago, which didn't last. So we're getting that done under warranty. That's not costing us anything, so that's good. And then we're looking at different opportunities to paint and improve the pool hall area as well. So all of these things are in play. We're also looking at things like, I'm not sure if you've been there, and I know Councillor Mailing will have, say this, is that the windows along one facade are double glazed and they're failing, and within the double glazing it's all condensation, so you can see that there's all this running. It looks dirty. No matter how much you clean it, it just doesn't. So we're looking at options there to improve that, not only by getting a better system, but possibly better tinting, so that it helps with the environment and heat, and a better environment for our customers in there. So just wanted to give you the reassurance that there is a lot of things happening with the aquatic centre. It is, I guess, 20 years old. Services about 300 or so thousand people go through that facility a year. we hope that obviously with the Motueka Pool project, that might release a bit of pressure, but considering it's really the only other kind of indoor facility in Nelson of its like that, we're proud of it. I'm very comfortable with how the CLM team operate there. They provide great, programs. I just wanted to give you the reassurance that we are looking at these things. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you for that comprehensive feedback and your eye for detail. I will open it up now for councillors who may have any questions, and we're working on the reserves facility from page 67 through to 77. Councillor Kinnemoff and then Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. It is, I want to talk about Moutere Hills Recreation Centre, clause 6.16. Additional car parking. While Tony's here, there's been an ongoing issue in the rec centre with car parking when there's events. They're parking on the road, they're parking on the yellow lines, they're parking on the bend. They're creating dangerous environment, not only for the vehicles statically parked there, but vehicles that are moving through, people are moving through. So I would like to see this request from additional parking be provided. I'd like to see some sort of timeframes given to when this obvious issue is going to be sorted. Is there any timeframe allotted? Is there any work allocated to fix it?
Madam Chair, yes, Councillor Kinnemoff, we've talked a lot about it, and I have talked with Katrina McLean at the Moutere Hills Rec Centre, and my colleague here has seen some of the photos which kind of raised a few hairs on the back of his neck. I think the main issue we have here is there is Keith Best is open to negotiating purchasing some land. That's the problem. Well, it's not a problem. We have to purchase some land to be able to develop the car park. It's not as easy as just providing, say, budget from RFCs or whatever it is for $35,000 to purchase this land. There has to be some thought gone into around the development of car parks, which is probably, I'm not sure, probably a couple of $100,000 to develop a car park. And then because we're taking sports field away, we need to replace it. So installing a player sports field is probably another $150,000. So it's a collective approach. We do need to look at this from a budgeting point of view from the long term, and it probably could go into an annual plan process. But my suggestion is to provide a report back to a committee based on need. And I know that we should be talking to all the clubs associated with that use Moutere Hills or could use it. Mapua Football, for example, as well as indicated they'd like to use the sports fields at Moutere Hills because they've got overflow requirements. I know that their lights at Moutere Hills aren't adequate as well. There's some problems with use. So when the lights are on, training tends to occur where the lights are, which is on the number one field, which isn't exactly the right way we should be operating. So my suggestion is to put together a report on the needs, do some assessment, and then come back and really have a good strategic view over how we're going to manage this. I know that Keith Best, the neighbour who is involved with the Moutere Hills board or organisation, wants that before he would relinquish or go into any negotiation with council to purchase some land. So that's my take, is that we'll need to find some budget to be able to undertake that work. I would suggest that it would probably take 2 to 3 months to do that sort of thing. Quite a lot of engagement. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. That's great that is all happening. I suppose my worry is now, seen the photographs that now have been sent to Jamie McPherson, where the parked cars are illegal, they're obstructing the road access, and I'm wondering whether we could partner with the rec centre management and say to them, when you're going to have an event, you need to have some sort of traffic management plan for what your people attending your events are doing outside. So that's probably where I'm coming from at the moment.
Sorry. The events that are held at the Moutere Hills Rec Centre should have health and safety and traffic management plans. I think it's appropriate that we would insist on those happening. Notwithstanding, it's a cost to the event, but that's part of having an event.
Thank you. And I guess I could comment that every event I've been to at the Upper Moutere Centre has had traffic management. There's event signs up and there's people in high vis directing traffic. But yeah, I hear your concerns. Thank you. We will move on to Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I just want to acknowledge the amazing work you guys do, and given the results of the resident satisfaction survey, acknowledge the heavy lifting that you guys do in creating a really good image for the work that the council does. But I just want to ask a question. It's great to have seen the new playground done at Escott Reserve in Berryfields, and have been in discussions with some of your staff regarding the slide, and I appreciate their explanations of the design of the slide, which was causing concern in the community. And for those that aren't aware, there were some issues regarding the safety at the top of the slide, and the explanation from staff came through that it was a slide that was designed for older children, and that the first rung on the slide was actually set quite high to prevent younger children going onto it. And I think that's something that we need to make clear in the community, because older children do have very little opportunity to take on some of those riskier behaviours. So I really appreciate that explanation. But I see that plannings and design starting for another one of the playgrounds within Berryfields, and potentially another one as well. Is there any plan to create a playground designed for those younger children? Because they're not really, shouldn't be using that other slide, which I note has been taken out at the moment. So what is the plan coming out for those playgrounds? Is the design going to be aimed towards that younger age group?
Through the chair. So I think that the parks you're referring to, Steve Richards, is currently working through the design of those. So I'd probably have to just check with him and come back to you, but I can do that offline if you like.
Thank you. And just I have one or a couple of questions and acknowledgements. So first of all, Jane, thank you for the mahi that you're doing. Thank you for the strong relationships you have in our communities with our councillor cottages. And it's always great to know that our maintenance is being done. And I guess everyone around this room knows that portfolio is a closed account. And yes, I'm sure when we have our housing workshop that is coming up at some point, we'll tease out a bit more about what that looks like moving forward. So I guess my only question for you is, is there any concerns that you have that you can't meet currently with restraints on what our long-term plans or any other thing have?
As you mentioned, it is a closed account, so I have probably a little bit more stretch in my budget. I do actively try and stick to the budgets, but often the work that I'm doing is health and safety related and keeping our older adults safe. So I don't feel that there would be anything that, you know, when I went for authorisation would actually be held back, just purely because we do have those reserves in that closed account and they're looking quite healthy.
Awesome, thank you. And the last one is directed at Tony. So thank you, as I said earlier, for your detailed explanation of the concerns that are currently at the Aquatic Centre. Thank you for the reassurance that we're not going to do the same modelling when you look at putting the spade in the ground in Motueka. And I guess my only question is, how do we ensure positive messaging and movements for the Aquatic Centre moving forward, knowing that obviously CLM have been using our lifeguards, which is probably not the best way of addressing things. Have CLM given you assurance that they're going to use a different model moving forward for keeping everybody's hygiene at a level that's safe and acceptable?
For the chair, yes, they have. I guess it's around rostering and how they, they have tasks. It's part of their job description. When you become a lifeguard, you do have to clean toilets. That's kind of normal. But what we've agreed to do is engage a cleaning contractor, which will help with the deep cleans. That's already occurred. I mean, it was started last week. So, as I said, timing is everything. But it's great to be able to say that we're initiating these things. So, yes, I'm comfortable with how CLM are operating. And, as soon as we talked about it, it was initiated. And that'll be a quarterly deep clean. It has to happen outside of closing time. So, and I know until now that any deep cleans that were occurring were being done by the management team after hours and on weekends. So, I think it's prudent that we support the cleaning, a new cleaning contract and regime. So.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you for the reassurance and for the work that you're doing out there for us. We will now move on to the property update from Nat Chin and councillors. That's page 94.
Kia ora koutou, through you, Madam Chair. I'll take the paper as read. I'd just like to point out a minor error, 8.24, it's meant to say defit of the mall, not refit. And in 8.13, there's a bit of a narration on there about the Motueka Recreation Centre and what's happening there at the moment. Essentially, we've done some thermal camera and endoscopic surveys of the building. We understand what the problem is, and we're now looking at a cost-effective repair methodology. We hope to come back to council sometime this year with that. Open to any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Maru.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Only because you highlighted it back. So what was the warranty from 2020? Because it was a considerable re-roof project that was done then.
The materials and workmanship was up to standard. The scope of works wasn't structural. The issue with the leaking is actually structural. The building is a refitted packing shed. It moves in the wind. The lapse between the roofing iron is opening up when it's windy because the building's moving so much. So part of the methodology for repair will actually have to consider stiffening the building or structural repair.
Thank you. Through the chair, I accept what was done, but I don't accept how we got there. So that project was done through a whole lot of experts and deemed that the work that was done in 2020 would stop the leaking roofs. So now that there's another thing and there's some structural issues, so I guess let's just not repeat history.
Sorry, is that a question or no?
Are there any further questions? Nope. Okay. So just bear with me. I've got to go back to future page. Yep. So we need to receive the Community Infrastructure Group Activity Report
Happy to move, Madam Chair.
and notes the council submission on the draft local waters done well water services preliminary arrangements bill. Are you happy to?
Move.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Dowler. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, team. We'll now move on to the library's customer service and community partnerships update report. So councillor Zets, we're going to start with the library's update from Glenys, and that's starting on page 105.
Madam Chair, do you mind if I go first? I've got an appointment at 12. Sorry about that.
You may go
Thank
first.
you. So I'll take the report as read and welcome any questions on the customer services report. Thank you.
Councillor Zets, page 121. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question, Janet, just note in the report around some callers are not perhaps behaving the way they should on the phone. I take it it's on the phone and across the counter. Just wondering what we're doing to support staff through that process or help them and discourage our customers from doing that.
Yeah, through you, Chair. We've all the team leaders support the staff if there's abusive language or even passive aggressive behaviour, whatever. And the team all know that they don't need to take the abuse and that they can hang up if they need to. Just let the customer know they're going to do it. We also have we've had health and safety training, but we're also looking at a top of the south good drills training, which should help prepare them a bit more as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How's the integration with the new Project Harakiki working?
Yes, for you, Madam Chair. Not yet. The Harakiki is going to take about 3 years, but yeah, we've got integration planned through it all. So we're hoping it's going to help us quite a bit.
Because I'm amazed the short time I've spent sitting there, the range of varied questions that you get and how you keep a straight face and answering something.
Yeah. Hopefully there'll be a knowledge base that's, yeah, helps us through it. Okay.
If there are no further questions, we might move on and juggle things around a little bit more, and we'll move to Lani Evans Community Partnerships update on page 115.
Right. And so good morning. Through you, Chair, I'll just take my report as read and welcome any questions if there is any.
Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report, Lani. Just in relation to the waste minimisation grants, just wondering when and how they were allocated. Is that now done through staff or through the grants committee?
So that waste minimisation policy, if they're all under $1,000, so staff can allocate those. Yeah.
Thank you.
But the ones other than that come to the subcommittee, the community grant subcommittee.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I did wonder. And just following on, you've got about the community grants, 200 applications. That's quite a lot again. Obviously, the subcommittee is going to need some reading time, so I guess that's a work in progress, is it?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I've spent weeks on those community grants. I tell you what, challenging weeks and weeks. Yeah, the report's all ready to go. They've all been. You should get them by Monday. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, early next week. So the
Will we get them electronically or in hard copies?
To be confirmed.
To be confirmed. Thank you. As long as you let us know, we'll figure it out.
Sorry, through you, Chair, your preference is hard or soft copy?
If they're on the what's it called? LG Hub, yes.
That's okay.
And it works, it's fine.
Okay, thanks.
So as the chair of that, that group, that committee, I'd much prefer we didn't print them because that's culling a few trees for that many applications. However, we could make an exception to the rule if somebody needed them printed. But Lani, thank you for the effort that you've put in thus far. No doubt our journey is going to be an interesting one.
I guess if I could, Madam, what is good is to have the summary document in hard copy. Yeah.
Councillor Dakey.
Thank you, Chair. Lani, we were working on enabling longer term support for groups and maybe looking to get that number that you're getting through down. How's that work progressing and when might we see that come to the?
So through each year, so we've decided to make the review of the grant system in line with LTP. So we need to test the waters a little bit first, but if I were to make changes, it would be the start of the next long-term plan. Financially, it just makes more sense to be in cycle with that. Yeah.
Now, if there's no further questions, oh, sorry, missed one, Councillor Kinnemoff.
Just put his hand out. You didn't really.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for accommodating my late request. Page 117, clause 4.14, Civil Defence Emergency Management Community Plans. I didn't realise that we went out to the communities and said to them, this is what we do, this is how we do it. I thought it was through Joe. So I go to a number of community associations who are crying out for help in this area. Do I put them on to you now, Lani, or to Joe?
So through you, Chair. So CJ, our colleague over in Mohua, she is the welfare manager for Civil Defence, and she is kind of leading the way at the moment by getting these communities to develop these plans, and she's doing a fantastic job. She's the expert in this field and works with Joe and them at Civil Defence, so she's in contact with them all the time, and there's a real push for the community to own the plans because they're going to be, if it's big, they're going to be out for a month. That's what she's saying, basically. So she's really getting those communities to own it. Once she's got Golden Bay sorted, she's then happy to come over the hill and help the rest of us if that, you know, get other plans sorted.
Could I ask that the Misery Waimea Ward get precedence over Motueka Ward in this instance?
Do I call standing orders at this point? Okay, if there are no further questions, we will move on. And Justine, lovely to have you at the table. To councillors, that's page 105, the library's update.
Hi, thank you. I'm Justine. I'm the Collection Services Librarian at Tasman District Libraries, presenting this on behalf of Glenys, who is away at the moment. So I'm going to take the report as read, and Glenys has asked me to highlight some aspects that we're particularly pleased and proud of. During the year, there's been an increase in events and programs and also attendance at that. So that's been across the district. And in particular Murchison, where we're now running events mostly during the children's holidays, and this has also resulted in an increase in issue numbers for our Murchison Library. Tasman Heritage, which is our digital archive, we've recently increased what's available on it, and in particular there's been a bigger uptake in the use of the digitised versions of the council minute books. So there's 205 digitised council minute books in there that people are enjoying having access to. Also of note is the fact that our Tākaka branch is beginning to rebound, both in issues and in visitors. So that took quite a hit during COVID, and we're finally beginning to increase and return to pre-COVID levels for that. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question. I just wanted to highlight a good timing, since it's the libraries, that for those that didn't watch breakfast this morning, Minister Bishop did confirm that libraries and swimming pools are key council responsibilities. Just in terms of the Prime Minister's nice speech yesterday. So I'm glad to see that government recognised libraries as a key council responsibility, as of pools.
Cool.
Thank you for that contribution, councillor Maru. Is there any other comments from councillors? Okay, thank you. So we do need to receive the library's customer service and community partnerships update report. Councillor Ellis, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Kinnamuff. All in favour? No one against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, team. We shall now move to Chris Blythe's report on the Information Services Activity Report, which is page 128.
Kia ora koutou. So I'm going to hand over to Pete, who's going to give a little bit of an overview of the report, some of the highlights.
Yes, through you, Chair. With the report this time, we just wanted to highlight the upgrade to the Nelson Tasman Emergency Management Centre. The previous conversation, this is following on from that. So we've upgraded the technology and the system that the centre uses, which is going to make the centre more streamlined in how it can work through its day-to-day operations, but also how we can spark up during events, as it's going to make it easier for the councils from Nelson and Tasman to join up, as well as the other members that come in and assist during events to work in the operations centre. So that's some good news. I just wanted to highlight as well, the report talks about some of the various business projects that we get involved in outside of. We spend time in this meeting talking about the DIP program, but we do a lot of work around outside of that. So we've got 30 plus projects in our program list for IS, including things like the water consent metering application, the update to the river and rainfall graphing system and things like that. So the team are busy at work on a whole raft of projects outside of the DIP program. And I just wanted to mention that the Harakiki and the Data and Insights programs are moving along well. And we had a quick mention of it in the previous report. While the Harakiki program is 3 years long, we're 1 year into it. And the first delivery of changes, which will be visible to our customers, is in June next year with release 1 of the customer system. And that includes all the general requests, which includes information requests, feedback, complaints, compliments. And so we'll start to see much better information coming through to the system and a lot more streamlined workflows coming through. So that's June next year.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you. Do I have any? You may, Councillor.
So firstly, just a comment around the speed management plan, the mapping the team did there and the interactive maps. I found them really a great thing, and they were really welcomed by a lot of people. So well done to the team for doing that. Because I imagine there's quite a lot of work goes into making it, particularly when a lot of the cases there were quite short sections involved. So someone did a lot of work, but it certainly made it easier at their consultation meetings and at the actual joint regional speed management plan meetings and workshops where we had them. And I think we even shared them with Nelson City a couple of times, didn't we? So no, that was really appreciated. And I just have a further question about the water consent monitoring. I know this is a bit of a hobby horse of mine, but we're still on target that those that are not affiliated to the dam will be able to monitor what they're doing, I guess is what this is all about, or not doing, and doing that what they should be.
Yeah, so with phase 2 and phase 3 of the water consent metering, so we're going to daily monitoring now. So the triggers that affect when the unaffiliated versus the affiliated have to go into rationing now is more dynamic, and that's kind of the whole plan for the system, is that it makes it efficient and dynamic as those changes happen. Does that answer your question?
And it seems like there's a whole lot of work gone into this Is that because of the daily sort of, even down to hourly or regularly during the day, isn't it?
That's right. So the idea is that you have a real time understanding of what is happening and when triggers are crossed over.
Right, thank you. And then my final question is just around 5.4 on page 130, just around the Harakeke CRM discovery stage. Just wonder if you could explain in layman's terms what that really means. This will lead to the first horizon of the delivery from October 24 to June 25. I understand a little bit about the Harakeke, but I don't quite understand why you need all these workshops.
So what we're doing in the discovery stage is working out the priority for the functional changes that the organisation needs, and also developing the technical foundation. So it's a whole new technology we're bringing into the organisation. So setting up the technology is one part of discovery, and then what is the priority for change? You know, do we completely change our resource consent application process, or do we do animal control, or do we target food health, or do we do complaints, or do we do legoimas? So getting the priority has been really important in the discovery phase. And what comes out of the discovery phase is then the program of work for Horizon 1. And for Horizon, just think phase or stage. It's just a kind of way we use it in sort of IT project space. So I mentioned that the general requests are coming across as part of Horizon 1, and that's released in June next year. So that's the program of work that's come out of the discovery stages. So there has been a lot of workshops, but what we've talked about in the DIP is that we're designing our future now. So rather than having to purchase some technology that does 60% of what we do, and we just try and muddle our way through the other 40%, we get to design sort of workflows where we're not programming systems, but we're designing workflows that are meaningful to our customers in the language that we use here in Tasman, meaningful for our staff, and give a better experience for both staff and customers as they use our systems.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And finally, just congratulations to Sarah on her new role. If you'd like to share them with her.
Thank you.
I think she's done really well to get to that stage.
Through you, Chair, can I also just mention the traffic management plans? Alongside that piece of work, we're also changing the way that we can deliver public information via GIS out to the public. So again, part of the digital program that we're investing in allows us to have better performing sort of data portals to get access to information. So what you'd expect to see over the coming years is that more information is going to be made available to people, and more in geospatial and mapping form, because we know that's the way people like to interact with our data. Get to a location and find out what's going on there. So we're going to see a more efficient, but also better managed, safer in terms of cybersecurity and all of that kind of stuff for our information to be out there in the outside world.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those comprehensive answers. And Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's probably the extension of what you just said, Pete. So Google Maps is probably our worst nightmare, I believe, in terms of they don't necessarily get the data that you upload wherever you upload. So for emergency services and other departments, will they be able to link into our GIS and extract that data direct? So the background is there was a person that needed to call an ambulance to Quayle Street in Motueka last week. It doesn't exist on St. John's mapping system because they use Google Maps, I think. So I didn't know that. So the fact that agencies could then get data from each of the TAs, it'd be up to date.
Through you, Chair, yes, I'd probably need to refer back to the people in the GIS team who know how this stuff works. But we're constantly in a like we manage the rural addressing for the district, so our addressing data is really accurate, but we don't have any control over what various services consume. And I have to say, for my use, I quite like Google Maps, but I get told off by our GIS team whenever I say that, because our data is so much more accurate and has a depth which Google Maps doesn't.
We received the information services activity report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. No, I don't have any questions, just to acknowledge the amazing work that team is doing and the ground that you're covering. That's great. So it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Bryant, seconded by Councillor Kinnemoff. All in favour?
Aye.
No one against? Carried. Okay, so that brings us to, thank you, team. That brings us to the final report on our agenda today, which is the implementation of risk-based temporary traffic management. Welcome back, Jamie. Page 141.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering how to introduce this subject. I think what I'll do is I'll just take it as read and let people ask any questions that they may have. You know, this is a subject that is potentially bigger than Ben-Hur, and I'm not going to be able to give all the answers. It's a journey that we are on collectively in New Zealand with how we do risk-based traffic management that better aligns with the Health and Safety at Work Act, which has now been around for some years. What I will say is where this ends up, there's a degree of hope that this will result in more appropriate site-specific traffic management being completed, which will hopefully be more efficient in terms of the costs. But to get there is going to take a lot of work. This just doesn't happen by itself. It takes dedication by the people working in the industry to actually do the risk assessments and to upskill themselves and to apply that to their work site. So there's a huge amount of upfront planning that's going to go along with this change. And so what we're going to see initially is quite a bottleneck and a backlog, because the people who are skilled enough to do the planning are not growing on trees. They're currently frantically trying to deliver the work that we're already trying to deliver. So, you know, for a time, the biggest barrier to this being implemented well and fast is going to be the time that people have to spend just churning through the risk assessments and doing those in such a way that everybody is satisfied that the risks are being managed. So it's going to be a slow burn. So even though as an industry we're moving as fast as we can towards it, it's going to take time. So maybe that's the introduction that I was hoping to give.
Thank you, Jamie. And I know that I've already got Councillor Maru and then Councillor Dakey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there's a risk, Jamie, that actually the intention of this from a government perspective in terms of when they announced it was to get rid of cones, reduce costs. This model could actually increase costs.
I'll just go back a step. This has been around for about 2 years, so it's been developing a long time. So it has nothing to do with announcements that the government has made recently. The government has set out clearly what their expectations are from the industry around reducing the costs of traffic management, and that's fine. Yeah, New Zealand Guide to Temporary Traffic Management by itself won't necessarily deliver that. So the focus is on risks and the liability on those holding the risks as it stands under the Health and Safety at Work Act. There are pretty severe penalties to a personal level for, you know, the officer of an organisation. You'll be familiar with how that works as PCBUs. So there's an understandable degree of risk aversion amongst many contractors, many clients who actually understand their risks. And what it might take to actually encourage risk taking, if that's going to make work cheaper, is a review of the Health and Safety at Work Act. And I understand the government have signalled that they're going to review that. But you are right that this could increase costs, at least initially. So NZTA, who have driven this forwards basically on the direction of the minister, are trying to, for example, negotiate with existing maintenance contractors to move from COPTM to NZGTTM. One thing stopping them is negotiating what that cost might be. So the signals we're getting is that the contractors are saying you're going to have to pay us more to change the standard from COPTM to NZG TTM. So the NZTA are introducing it on new contracts for capital works and new maintenance contracts, but trying to retrofit it to existing maintenance contracts is problematic.
Thank you, councillor Dakey.
Thank you to the chair. Yeah, interesting choice of government direction here. Sort of hard to know where to start, isn't it? With the current model we use under COPTM, what percentage of an average job would be TMP safety set out? What sort of percentage fail?
It does vary. I'm going to have to speak from a general gut feel as opposed to real data, because collectively we haven't been recording that specifically, although that is changing. We're going to work with our contractors to actually monitor that. But as an indication for a really large project, it might be 10 to 15% of the cost. For smaller works, it might be 30 or 40% of the cost. It really depends on the work being done. The methods we can use to minimise costs include temporary road closures, and those are things that we have done and will continue to do. So everybody's on board with trying to keep the costs down. That's just a matter of standard practice for us. But what we will see, and I've signalled in here, is to bring down the cost by closing roads will be difficult for some road users to accept. It's going to be disruptive to them, disruptive to residents, disruptive to a lot of people. But I'd like, to make it known up front that that's what we're going to be doing in order to meet the ratepayers' needs for keeping costs down.
Just a follow-up question: when someone tenders for a job, is the TMP management built in the job? So we hear a lot in the community, we're paying for daily rental of road cones. Typically, when we have a job, say reselling a road, is all the TMP included within the tender? Or are we, say, being billed for road cones currently?
The answer to that through the chair is it depends. So for a capital project, where we're using a standard procurement method, the contractors will tell us what it will cost to do that job, and we choose one of them. They will build the cost into their tender. So effectively it's a lump sum. And if the job takes longer and they have to use more cones or more people or take them, that's a risk on the contractor. So they will, knowing that, they will build some level of contingency into their price. So the principal, us as council, might be paying extra, so we might pay more than we need to, but the contractor gets the job done faster. They don't charge us less, they just still stick with their lump sum. But a model like the Alliance, we pay actual cost. So that makes it a bit easier to track the traffic management costs. So for example, reseals, one thing we're working through right now is, under the old code of practice, we couldn't delay traffic for more than 10 minutes, or we had to limit the size or length of work sites to meet within the guidelines that COPTM produced. But we're looking at stretching that out. So if we delay people by 20 minutes, how much more efficient does that make the operation? If we have our site 3 kilometres long instead of 1.2 kilometres long, that's a huge benefit in terms of the efficiency, letting the guys just do the work. And, how else can we manage traffic? Can we reroute it? Can we use a pilot vehicle to make sure traffic that comes through the site is only travelling at 30 km an hour, which keeps people safe, which means we don't need to cone off every little place where people might be standing. So it does open up the possibilities for us, and that's the exciting part of this.
Thank you. Thank you for your good questions, Councillor Dowler, and then we'll have Councillor Kindermoth.
Happy to remove the report. Very exciting to see that there's possibly something going to happen. I don't actually, well, I do put down the traffic management at the moment, because sometimes I think it is just OTT. I use a classic example just currently right now. In Motueka, there's some work being done on Wakawera Street, which is putting water mains across the road and meters along the footpath. and they've got one side of the road completely closed off, so you can't come out. They're actually down past the McDonald's site now, and it's all finished and da-da-da. But that part of the road's still closed. So if someone goes into McDonald's, they come out, they've got to turn right and drive right around the block to get home if they've come from the other side of town. In my world, that section has been completed. The cones should be shifted. Still close that half the road off down there, but shift the cones down to the road closure on the other side of the McDonald's driveway so people can come in and go out how they are. That's the bit that irks me. I see that quite often, that work gets completed, but the border doesn't get shifted along. So that's just a general comment. And I think that's what frustrates a lot of the people in the community as well, is they can see that there's no reason for that 150 metres to be still closed, but it is. And, you know, then you get the frustration of people going out and kicking the cones over or deliberately hitting them and bowling them and stuff like that. So that's the part. But what you've just been talking about there now, I can understand that things will be a bit more costly to start off with. Pilot vehicles are used predominantly in the North Island. We did some roadworks up there recently at a meeting I was at, and even on the Saturday the boys were working, and we were behind the ute that took us through, and then it turned around and we brought the traffic back the other way. I thought that was quite common sense, because I can see there's nothing worse than someone being a dork and travelling at 60k when they should only be doing 30. I'll back that all the way through. You are in a safety zone, so yeah. But no, I'd like to just remove move the report, and hey, let's get on with it and hopefully become successful.
Thank you, councillor Dowler, for moving it. I will look for a seconder shortly. Meanwhile, I'll get councillor Kinnemoff to ask his questions.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to second. I forgot to ask you earlier, comment earlier on, so please give me a bit of a lateral work here. Thank you. Jamie, really appreciate the work that you do here, and I would also like to publicly thank you for what you've done in Wensley Road. I'm sure Councillor Mayling would like to thank you for the reduction of the speed humps there, and I also thank you for what you've done. So that's one. The second thing was, Jamie, Mr. McPherson, sorry, has sent me a copy of the TTM guide to temporary traffic management. It's only 88 pages. There's a lot of pictures in there, but I think we as councillors would benefit from having a copy of that if we wanted, and we could read some of the things that are coming up in this guide. So I was going to put it out there that if any councillor wanted a copy of the guide, to talk to Jamie, and happy bedtime reading.
Thank you for that, councillor Kinnemoff. Jamie, could you circulate that to all councillors, and then they can choose whether they do bedtime reading or over a cup of tea in the morning?
Yeah. I was just querying whether that was a public document, and it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
No,
Thank you. If there's no further question, oh, sorry, I forgot there's someone chipping on my side. Deputy.
I failed a bit on that.
Yeah.
Keeping the names.
He's not writing from you.
No, I told you it a short concentration period. But anyway, Jamie, just to follow on from a couple of others about road closures rather than as part of traffic management. This is one thing, and you alluded to it, has hurt that Murchison Community Council, particularly on the state highways around their area. Like there was a road closure in Marawea State Highway 65, so it's not where they put in a new culvert under the road, but they closed the road for 2 days, and the community council really struggled to why they needed to close the road for 2 days. As you can appreciate, makes quite a long detour from anyone from out the Marawea to go round through Reefton and return home. And normally at one time, like they would have just had some traffic management there, got the culvert in half a day, all be happy. 2 days just seems over the top. And I do wonder if they're using this to perhaps melt the system or do other work. There may be a legitimate reason, but on a state highway, they were just frustrated that they were doing that. I know it's not your issue, but and I understand that it is much easier when the road's closed, but there's got to be some sort of moderation around it.
Yeah, well, I can't speak, sorry, through the chair, I can't speak to that particular example. I don't know anything about it being on State Highway, but the key issue around using things like closures and detours is the concept of lowest total risk. I'll talk about that in the report. So someone proposing a road closure needs to demonstrate that the benefits of safety for the workers doing the work is greater than the risks being introduced to all the traffic that might need to detour onto other roads that might not be up to the same standard. And that's a real issue. And so it's going to generate some interesting discussions. The issue of how long work takes, I mean, no contractor would want the work to take any longer than it needs to. So I would be surprised if they're leaving sort of sites around too long. I think sometimes people don't appreciate just the different parts of a construction operation and why you might need to, it looks like there's nothing happening, but you know, it might be concrete setting or some other thing happening that can't be hurried. Yeah.
Thank you. With that, have you had someone?
I have a mover and a seconder. Just before I put that to the vote though, Jamie, thank you for the amount of work that you put into this alongside Richard Kirby and your teams. I guess one of the things that I'd like to highlight is I appreciate that, you know, you've clearly stated that we're working for the lowest total risk. So on behalf of our community, thank you for that. And I think the other question that I often get from our wider community is the questions that come to me clearly states a lack of people's understanding on who's responsible for what part of the roads, what is TDC's responsibility to upkeep and maintain as opposed to Waka Kotahi NZTA. And I guess as councillors, it's our job to continue to reassure the community around who's responsible for what, where and how, and that at some point, as Deputy Mayor suggested, you know, or stated, that's not an area that we're responsible for, but we are certainly responsible to advocate on behalf of the community. And if we continuously see these things that cause frustration and road rage, then we should be lobbying and supporting, you know, conversations that are robust with the counterparties, NZTA, Waka Kotahi, to let them know the frustration that causes. So without any further to do, I will put this to the vote. We have a mover for this report from Councillor Dowler and it's seconded from Councillor Kinnamoff. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Carried. So my understanding that brings us to the end of today's meeting. I am going to ask Richard Kirby if he would do the closing karakia.
Kia hiki ti korero, kia wātia ki mama ti manawa o te tangata, kia uki ti ara mō tātou I e ora manei, ko rongo ki runga, I tēnā ue tākie.
Kia ora, thank you for that. Thank you for your participation up there. Chanel, I can still see you on the screen. Kei pai. Go well, councillors. Thank you for the work that you continue to do for our communities.